This episode of Nos Arietes is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based wine retailer and proud sponsor of Nos Arietes since 2011. Full Pull was founded in 2009, is based in Seattle, and is owned and operated by longtime Sounders supporters. They offer the best boutique wines of the world to members of their mailing list, with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest.
Hey, this is Christian Roldan.
And Jordan Morris from the Seattle Sounders Football Club.
And you're listening to...
This is Nos Arietes.
Here we go. Come on! Hey, O'Shan! Let's go!
Save by Fry! The Seattle Sounders have done it! MLS Cup winners!
Here comes Rangers through the middle to crown it for Seattle! And now they truly can start the celebrations. It's the Sounders MLS Cup.
Nicolas Lodeiro leaves absolutely no doubt! The Sounders rule the region!
Seattle Sounders is good.
Seattle Sounders, the greatest MLS team in history.
They've scored! They've scored! Finally!
This feels fucking awesome.
This is a tiny dog.
Is that what you young people call twerking?
And Paul McKay says, cheating.
We want to win. Let's see how the Sunday, bro.
Good for Seattle!
Welcome back to another episode of Nos Arietes, sponsored by Full Pull Wines, Watson's Counter, and our Substack subscribers. This is the Mailbag episode for week 21 of the MLS season. I am Jeremiah Shan, and I am doing this week's episode solo. Let's get right into this thing. First of all, we got some questions from our Substack subscribers. So let's start there. This is from, I'm going to guess, Shavia Bell. They want to know, why wasn't Paul Rothrock given a first-team contract? He seemed to have a pretty good run of scoring and would have been pretty helpful late game situations. I'll just start off by saying I agree. I thought Paul Rothrock looked great. I think he probably could have been useful, especially while Christian Roldan was out. My suspicion, though, is that the Sounders have pretty limited salary cap maneuverability right now, and they want to essentially hold their powder as long as they can. My suspicion is that Rothrock and maybe one other Tacoma Defiance player is going to get signed this transfer window, but that they don't want to do that until they know they can't bring in a player from outside the organization. The player they bring in from outside the organization probably informs the kind of player they want to bring up from the Defiance. So basically what they want to do is not overcommit and sign Rothrock or anyone else, and then feel like, oh, whoops, I wish we had a little bit more maneuverability. So it's sort of a short-term pain for long-term gain. Hopefully that works out, but that's my suspicion anyway. All right, this is another one from Substack, from Nick in Seattle. He says, I keep meaning to ask this oddball question. I'm enough of a Sounders nerd that I can easily recognize every audio clip in the pod intro. The MLS Cup save by Fry, best twerking question to Schmetzer, choose on-field comments after his 4-assist match this year, etc., except the very first one. It kind of sounds like Schmetzer on the field doing a pregame match hype type thing. I can't even work out what he's saying. What feels good? Let's go. What is the source of this audio? It keeps driving me nuts every time I start an episode. Well, I have something to share here. That is a clip. You're right about it being Brian Schmetzer. It is not, however, from a pep talk. It is from the highlight video that the Sounders created off of the Media Day game back in 2020, I believe. And that is Brian Schmetzer yelling at me. He's saying, hey, O'Shan, let's go. I think I was playing as a right back and he wanted me to push forward. So it's sort of like an inside joke there, but I can see how, if you aren't prepared to hear that, how it might be kind of confusing. But anyway, hopefully that answers your question. I went back and tried to find the actual highlight because I wanted to link to it, but I'm having trouble tracking it down. If anyone finds it and they want to share it with me, by all means, send it, and I will put it in the show notes. This one, again, from our Substack subscriber, Oscar Paul. He says, once our internationals are back, do we ever think we'll see a day when Brian proactively puts Nico on the bench and relegates him to a super sub role? Is that just a hard conversation he doesn't want to have with the captain? Well, I think it's a very valid question. I don't know the answer for certain, but this is starting to feel a little bit like the Clint Dempsey situation in 2018 when Brian was sort of trying to navigate how to handle Clint Dempsey, who had clearly his production had fallen off, not in a totally dissimilar way than how Nico's production has fallen off. I will point out that during this 12-game stretch, he started the season great. We were praising him. We were talking about what great shape he was in, and he looked like he was poised to have a standout season. And at the time, I remember thinking, like, man, they better sign this guy to an extension now because he deserves it. Well, it turns out they were probably smart not to sign him to that extension. Over the last 12 games, he has 1 goal, no assists, and that 1 goal was a penalty. He is just not really contributing very much to the offense these days, and that is an increasingly significant problem to the point where I think it is a totally fair question to ask once they have a fully fit squad, a fully available squad, is he going to have a space in this lineup? And I don't know. I don't know that he does. To me, if I'm filling out the lineup card, I probably have, again, assuming a fully fit squad, I think I have Morris as the left wing. I have Rui Diaz as my number 9. I have Christian Roldan as the right mid. I think I'm pushing Albert Rusnak up to the number 10. And then I want one of Obed Vargas or Josh Atencio next to João Paulo. Maybe Nico fits in there as well. And I know my Sounder at Heart colleague, Andrew Pearson, has sort of been making that case for quite a while now. And I think there's some validity to the idea that he might actually fit in really nicely as a number 6. But I don't think he really belongs in the attack at this point, especially when they're fully fit. And, that's hard to say. I wouldn't totally close the door on his possible return. But what I can say is that he's not even worth probably TAM money as an offense if he's primarily an offensive player next year and beyond. I think either he's got to really change roles. He might be a really effective super sub type of player, but I am definitely open to the idea that he's not really a starter on this team once they're fully fit. All right. This is the last one from our Substack subscribers. And I'll remind everyone, if you want to become a Substack subscriber, just go to nosaudientes.substack.com. The plans are available for as cheap as $5 a month or $50 a year. And basically what we do is we give you priority to get your questions answered. You get some access to extended episodes. We just did one with Adam Bells from Scuffed. We have another one coming up where we're going to talk to Brad Evans. So there'll be an extended cut version of that. We have some other players and personalities that we have lined up for extended interviews like that. So if you want to be doing that, listening and contributing, and also just supporting independent soccer media, go out there and sign up. So anyway, with all that said, here's the last question from Bill Jones, or the last Substack question from Bill Jones. He says, our defense looks great and a healthy Nuhu goes a long way, but we sure could use someone to stretch the right side of the offense. Would it make sense to start Tevez on the right and slot Lodeiro next to JP for Houston? That's an interesting idea, and it's a nice companion question to the previous one. And there's some validity there. I think that's probably worth looking at. I suspect Lodeiro is going to start on the right again. But yeah, I mean, I on the full podcast, Mark and I also wondered if it would make sense to maybe start Obed Vargas on the right. That's another idea that I sort of am into. I think the Sounders are probably going to have a lot of the ball against Houston, which is another reason why starting Lodeiro in the defensive midfield makes a lot of sense. It's not like he's going to have to do a ton of defending there. And, we've run the numbers, and in terms of defensive actions, he's not really any less active than Albert Rusnak. So it would be an interesting experiment to run. As you may know, Jackson Reagan is also going to be out for that game. He picked up, he's going to be on a yellow card suspension after getting that yellow card against Orlando. So, It'll be an interesting one. This is not a literal must win, but man, the Sounders really do need to start winning some home games. And Houston is not a bad team, but they are not very good on the road. And this is absolutely a game the Sounders should feel like they have to win. All right, so going to the questions we picked up off of Twitter. This is from Josh on the Sound. He says, do you have a sense of whether the Sounders are getting what they want out of MLS Next Pro? Cody Baker stepping in and keeping Bouanga under wraps feels like a big win. Yeah, I would say that does feel like a big win. And Brian Schmetzer actually pointed out that was a pretty good performance from Cody Baker. And I think the Sounders are generally getting what they want out of both the academy and Defiance. They are consistently bringing players up from that team. They haven't had a whole bunch of them break through as obvious first team starters, but you've got Obed Vargas, you've got Josh Atencio, you've got Cody Baker. A step down from that, you have Reed Baker Whiting. These are all players who came through the academy relatively recently and through the Defiance /S2 and are making significant contributions to the first team. Now, they aren't bang on starters, which is the next step, I think. But if one of those guys can be sold, that's almost as good. So, yeah, I mean, I think they're getting what they want out of that whole developmental pipeline. This one's from TIE Fighter 17. What's going to happen first? 1, an Héber goal. 2, a set piece goal. Or C, the other team scores an own goal. Well, I don't know. I hope it's one of Héber or a set piece goal. I'm going to say Héber is more likely to score than a set piece goal. It feels like Héber, I know he's been getting a lot of flack, and yeah, he does need to finish some of these chances. But in his defense, I do think that they've done a pretty good job of not just creating chances for him, but he's done a decent job of like at least putting his shots on frame. And that's really all you can ask, right? Like you put your shot on frame and you take your chances from there. Hopefully some of those start falling for him. I still think he's going to end up scoring a few goals for the Sounders. And if they do, that could turn fortunes around quite a bit. All right. This is the last question. This is also off of Twitter. It's from Steve Edholm. He says, what are your thoughts on Héber at this point? I guess I could have stacked these a little bit better, but overall, I think Héber has been okay. No, he has not been great, but he has been a lot better. I mean, he is not a bum. He's not just falling apart. I see a lot of really kind of like, frankly, strange comments about Héber in terms of like how bad he is. People like dread the idea of him getting into the game, and I don't quite get it. This is a guy whose movement is still elite. He had 3 or 4 plays against Orlando that I thought all looked very good. He's good in possession. I still like watching him play. I mean, yes, I want him to finish some of these chances, but I'll take a guy who's getting into good shooting positions over and not finishing as many as you'd like over someone who's simply not getting into those shooting positions in the first place. So yeah, I mean, I still think he's a benefit to the offense. It would be nice if someone was scoring, and then I don't know if we would be quite as focused on his particular lack of finishing. But it is sort of getting into that Nelson Valdez in 2016 territory where I don't think he's missed any sitters quite as bad as some of the ones that Valdez missed, but it's not good. It's not ideal. And I can appreciate that, but overall I think he's been okay, even if it's not quite up to the standard that you would expect for what the Sounders had to spend to get him. He is on $1 million salary. The Sounders gave up $200,000 in GAM this year, and then another $200,000 next year. So yeah, I mean, he wasn't a free acquisition, that's for sure. But I don't think that he's lived up to those expectations. But I think some of the criticisms of him are a little bit over the top. Well, that's it. Those are the questions we got. So this was the mailbag episode for week 21 of the MLS season. Hopefully the next time we do this, I'll have some of my partners in crime to help me with it. But let me know what you thought about the solo effort, and if people really dug it, maybe this is the format we'll use more often. But all that said, thank you for hanging out with me. I am Jeremiah Oshan, signing off for our sponsors, Watson's Counter. Full Pool Wines. And again, thank you to everyone who's supporting us on Substack. We will hopefully have more exciting news about that project in the future. But yeah, this is No Scientist, and we'll catch you next time.
We love you. Let's win another one.